SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome to Module 4, Session 4, Understanding Gestalt Principles, that is continuity. Let's dive in. So in our previous session, as you can see the slide, we have completed similarity and we have also tried to understand how similarity plays an important role in creating different perception while you design. So in terms of similarity, we have also looked into how similarity in terms of color plays an important role to help us navigate. Similarity in terms of shapes, right, to help us to understand the overall hierarchy, and in similarity in terms of sizes also, where you design the layout, you design the composition in such a way that it becomes easier for us to comprehend in a much better way and much effectively. So today we'll learn about principles of Gestalt's principles in terms of continuity. So we'll go through that now. Gestalt's principles of continuity asserts that the human brain tends to follow the smoothest path when interpreting visual elements, okay, and perceiving them as a part of a continuous flow or pattern, even if they are not explicitly connected. So what it means by that, so if you see this image here, right, you can see a representation of dotted line, right, and it has its own way of depiction, right, and your eyes will tend to focus on this pathway now because there is less complexity, right. And let's see now. So when I add that other line right now, your eyes will tend to focus this line to be priority. Then gradually it will take the path here, right? Or the other way around. Or it may just take this path as usual, right? And this principle reflects our tendency to organize element in a way that avoids abrupt changes or interpretation, creating a sense of harmony and direction in visual design. So when you see this image, right, if you see the previous image, anyways, it was following that path. Suddenly, if I add this diagonal line here, now your eye will take the smoothest and the simplest path. It will never try to take the abrupt way of representation. Initially, it will follow the smoothest path, then it will gradually follow the other ways around until unless the users has been asked to navigate through that. Now, let's take another example. What's happening here now? So here now, because the color is implemented here, now again the path changes because of the color. Now you are again, now the idea of similarity is coming, similarity in terms of color. Now because of this similarity, you are not associating this portion to connect with this, okay, and that's why you will take the actual part in this way. Why I have shown this again, this primarily things are observed in the name of continuity are during when you go through any kind of navigation or any kind of map, right? So the color plays an important role in navigating us, and the lines are the way of direction which we tend to follow. So this is a very good example how the idea of similarity and continuity is going hand to hand to navigate the users, to give them direction, right, without abrupt changes or interpretation. Okay. Now let's again go in depth in segment wise. So under principles of continuity, we'll see how lines and curves in design can play important role in understanding the overall perception. So here, if you can see in the right side, there is image with a building with some spots and a car, right? So we'll go phase by phase. Let's focus on the building now. So if you consider the principle of continuity, the principles of continuity is happening in multiple ways. One is the patches which is observed, right, in the overall wall, and it feels like it's flowing towards the overall surface of the building. Another segment you can see here in terms of the window openings. Okay, so the continuity is again happening in terms of the window, how they are projected in a specific grid. Apart from that, again the other portion, you can see a line, right, which is the partition here. Again, this feels like a sense of continuity in the overall building. So this is where the idea of lines and curves are playing an important role to depict the idea of continuity in this composition. Now let's focus on the car. So in most of the automobile industry, always when they create any kind of car, they always keep this in mind. The sense of continuity is prevailed from the front view to the back view. Okay, and that's why car designers take tremendous amount of time to create sharp lines or any kind of uplifts or any kind of curves while they are making that particular car. So if you focus on this car, the sense of continuity is there from the front headlight to the back headlight. Okay, and again there's a strong line which is passing through that, right? Even though there are segments like windows, there are segments like the doors, right, doors with handles, but since the line is passing through from the front headlight to the back headlight, the sense of continuity in the overall aesthetic of the car seems to be more harmonious in nature. Okay, and similarly the idea of this the wheels, if you see the rim wheel alloy wheels design, right, it's similar in representation, similar in size, and the sense of continuity is also being addressed using how the openings are designed, including the same line. Okay, and that's very interesting to see how even a car also goes through such kind of representation to create more harmonious design. So primarily, if you see good car design, they will always follow the idea of continuity from front to back to even interiors. So some of the textures even, so continuity in terms of textures may happen. So if some of the textures which are predominantly showcased maybe in the grille, and similar texture if it's shown as a seat design, the sense of uniformity always prevails and people will connect to the overall composition in a much stronger way. Again, car designers also uses their emblem a lot and the name of the brand, right? So suppose if it's a suppose say for example we are talking about a famous Maruti car, like suppose Baleno is very much like highly sold car in Indian context, right? So if you see it, even the logo has been repeated continuously somewhere or the other, maybe in the steer wheel, right? Steering wheel, maybe in the side of the car, maybe in the front of the car, front grille of the car, back of the car. So it has been repeated continuously, so that to create a sense of the brand presence basically, and it's also a matter of pride for them to showcase the idea of the logo repeated in a continuous manner. So that's how the idea of the continuity plays along when you consider lines and curves in overall design, and you can take many benefits through that, and the overall design can create more harmony, can be more harmonious in nature. Yeah, so this is a top view of some of the passage or maybe a building here, right? And you can see some of the pathways which are associated to the building. And you can see how the idea of continuity has been maintained in a very organic representation, and how the overall elements are also helping them to project the idea. So if you see here, it's very much organic. Suddenly there is a fusion between geometrical lines and organic lines, right, and abstract lines, and again it feels like it's a uniform representation, And the continuity not only extends here, right, it also extends to the pathways which are associated to this particular structure. And this is where again lines and curves are playing an important role to provide a sense of continuity in the overall structure. Maybe there are multiple different rooms, but from the top, how the building has been designed, it feels like a very organic flow, organic ripple of continuity. Okay. Yes, again, this is associated to architecture, how the bars are being designed in such a way that using the benefit of geometric representation, it feels very much flowy in nature and it feels very continuous in the overall presentation. So if any one of you is trying to attain some kind of work, especially in terms of architecture or interior design, you can also relook in the idea of how you can incorporate the sense of continuity by repeating similar elements or by addressing the overall composition in such a way that it feels like it's going through it helps me to navigate through the composition. Yes, this is again, this is a maze garden. Again, how the repetition of cuts of the bars of this floral bars has been taken into consideration, right? And somewhere or the other, your eyes navigates from this point to the central way, and there may be one or two continuous way to go through in a very like specific direction to reach here, right? And this is where again how game design also plays along with the idea of continuity, especially if you see the mage concept, right? Somewhere or the other you have to seek for a continuous line such that you get the end result. So in terms of again the idea of lines and curves, how the Gaston's principles of continuity can be taken into consideration such that we as a human can perceive it in a right way. Yes, so this is one of the famous posters by Pete Mondrian, right? So his artwork exemplifies his neoplasticism style, characters by grid of black lines, primary colors like you can see here, all the primary colors like red, black, blue, and yellow, right? Which is predominantly his way of expression, and it reflects his goal of achieving universal harmony and balance through abstraction. So this is again another interesting a phase where you can see how continuous line are being used in the composition to create an essence of what the artist is trying to explore, right? And it's a very abstract way of representation using continuous line, sharp continuous line, which is very much geometric in nature, right? It reflects how he is looking the idea of abstraction, rejecting the idea of naturalistic representation. And Mondrian's works primarily is influenced by the theosophy that sought to express spiritual orders through geometric simplicity. And the composition of asymmetric representation, which we have talked in our previous session of principles of design, which is balance, right? We have talked about asymmetrical balance. Here you can see how the idea of equilibrium has been maintained using equal, I would say, visual weight, which again in balance we have learned about it, right? It creates a sense of movement and stillness, and it again it's very much iconic. And most, if you consider some of the iconic poster design, definitely Piet's work has been recognized globally, and I would recommend you to look into his work and understand his perception. And this falls beautifully in the category of principles of continuity, where lines and curves are playing an important role in expression. Yes, now let's come to the idea of brand representation, that is logo design. So under logo design, how lines and curves also can play important role, right? So this is a logo of Woolmark, right? Which is also shows that it's 100% wool. So this logo, I am pretty sure most of you have seen it when you are wearing any kind of woolen material, right? If it's 100% wool, this logo will anyways pop up in your clothes or apparels. So the Woolmark logo was designed by Italian graphic artist Francesco I think Saroglia. His name was Francesco Saroglia, and it was launched in 1964 in Britain, and US, Japan, Germany, Holland, and Belgium. It was launched together, and this has become one of the most, I would say, sustainable logo, because it hasn't changed till then, till after that. And primarily, majorly, the essence of the logo has been prevailed. There are minor tweaks and tweaks which has been implemented for refinement, but the main idea, the main anatomy seems to be closer, even though it has been refined a little bit. And you can see how the idea of lines and curves are giving you a sense of 3D illusion of like a loop which is never ending. And this is where the principle of continuity, like how it is never ending, like as I said, it's a very never ending way of representation. That's why the sense of continuity has been prevailed in the overall composition. So this is where again, if the overall brand is inclining towards such kind of representation of continuous, abstract continuous representation, then definitely you can see and seek for any kind of better compositions where it makes sense to add the principle of continuity in your design. Yes, so the next logo is DTDC. Again, DTDC is an Indian brand which deals with logistic, especially within India, right? And you will see this brand mostly in all the segments of all the geographical area of India. So if you see this logo, right, the sense of continuity is attained by the negative space of a line which is drawn between the text. So between the text of DTDC, somewhere or the other, again, this also falls under the idea of closure, which we have talked about, right? How our brain automatically creates imaginary connection with the existing elements. And here, even though it's not D is not anatomically correct, but since it has been done in a very uniform way, somewhere or the other, our brain tends to fill this gap, right? And again, if you see the overall composition, it feels like a very strong, straight, continuous line which is crossing, and it's showing a red, I would say, a rhombus kind of representation, which is again very much interesting, where your eye starts from this position and stops here. And this is again a sense of continuity, because the overall elements are very much close by. Again, the group similarity is kept again coming here because of the grouping representation, grouping of similar colors, similar curves, right? Similar way of representation. So overall, when you see this logo, it feels in a one group, and it has a sense of continuity because of the strong negative line which has been passed through the middle of the logo. So as I said, you don't have to get confused whether whether in one composition there can be multiple or one. There can be multiple principles. You don't have to worry about that. Only thing is, like, you have to understand where it's happening, how it's happening, and you have to correlate with that. Okay. Yes, so coming back to another calligraphic representation, so this is again Campbell is a very famous company for food processing company in USA, and it was one of their iconic logo, which again was replicated by Andy Warhol as a representation of pop art, right? And you can see how the elements are flowy in nature because of the calligraphic essence, and it feels like it started with C and gradually it has gone continuously, and it has an in here as, right, Campbell's. And this is because of the flowy nature of the stroke thickness and thinness, and how the idea of cursive is more continuous in nature. So that's why the idea of lines and curves beautifully projects the essence of continuity in the logo design. And most of the logo designers also sometimes associate this kind of representation for their brand if they feel that this kind of representation makes sense to their context, right? So again, these are very much subjective to the context. It's not necessary that you have to always address it in a continuous way until unless the context demanded. You as a designer, you feel like it can be attained in such a way. Okay. Yes, so the next logo again, it has a continuous loop kind of thing, and the brand name is Rooks Telecommunication or RUX Telecommunications. It's a platform provider for Russian and was designed by 300 million brand. The name of the studio is 300 million, and which also predicts that it has no limits, which also claims that it has no limits. So based on that, if you see how the idea of again cursive representation is helping to depict the idea principle of continuity in the overall brand logo, and it is very much interesting. Why? Because it has this idea of perspective where the RO is getting extended larger and larger when it's getting twirl in every like segments, right? There are three twirls, and in each twirl it's getting larger and larger. Yes, so now let's come to the idea of layouts, right? So text and layout, how principle of continuity can impact in text and layout. So let's see. So this is one of the screenshot which like one of the page which we have taken into consideration for this example by on the book, and I think we have also discussed a similar way of representation in our previous segment, right? Here, but we'll look from the lens of continuity. Okay, so here how the continuity is happening. So primarily we read from left to right, right? And the first thing when I read, when I focus on this particular page, right, although there are different modular grids associated to it, my eyes will starts with this left to right wall portion, right, where you see the text, you read it in such a way, then gradually again it divides the overall layout in such a way that now you are reading from top to bottom, but in different segments. So there are 4 segments you are reading from top to bottom, because here the overall composition is designed in such a way that you read this alphabet and you go through here. You don't read this alphabet and go here directly because of the column size, right? So you can see the column size, there is a partition happening here, and because of that your eyes tends to read from top to bottom. Again, from top, once you are here, you read from left to right. Okay, so this is how again you can play along with the layout, and within one page there can be multiple way of representation, but make sure it's not too overly infused with the idea of such variation. Primarily, like you have to make it in such a way that it's well balanced, that it's not overly done. Okay, so as I say, this is from this feels like automatically your overall continuity seems different here. You read it from top to bottom. Again, in the lower segment, you read it from top to bottom, but again there are segments where you are saying okay, you are reading from left to right in a more larger context compared to this. So this is how the idea of layout also plays an important role to depict the idea of continuity in terms of text and typography. Okay. Yes, so this is again a different way of addressing continuity, but a very interesting composition by Marty Blake, who combines a variation of typefaces and how the overall compositions has been added to create a sense of legibility. And since there are variations in terms of projection, if you see this is going up, this is going a little bit low, right? And since it's all are cut out kind of patch out kind of compositions, right? So this has a sense of continuity in terms of the flow, how it has started and where it has ended. And even though the typeface seems to be very much different in every segment, but your eyes tend to follow this pathway and it able to read the overall composition. So next is related to digital platform, that is UI part, where we are focusing on the idea of how website design also always projects towards the concept of continuity. So continuity here, if you see, this is a screenshot of our Apple India website, and you can see how there are backgrounds which are also navigating towards that. So if you see, there's a background here, light gray color background, which runs on the background of the overall menu which is associated to this website. And the sense of continuity is there in terms of how the overall menu texts are being arranged in such a way that it feels like you read from left to right, and then you gradually focus on here, right, and the primary focus are here in terms of the segments which they are trying to project. So this is a Mac segment, this is iPhone segment, iPad segment, watch, right, other accessories which are associated to that. So your eyes flows from left to right, but again there is a continuity in terms of the idea of segments. Parallelly, if you see the lower portion here, right, here you can easily see how they are different. Again, they have created different banners which have, if you click here, you will go to more detail of that particular thing. Again, as we have discussed in our previous discussions, how some portion which are not evidently showcased in the website also triggers you to look more, and it also triggers you to swipe left to access the information in a much better way. So this is another way how you can create continuity. So there are continuity in terms of the website segment, right, the banners, the product categories, again the product details which are newly launched or something which they want to highlight. Okay. Yes, so now let's go to the idea of branding and advertisement, how continuity is playing an important role in our perception. Okay, so this is again an interesting brand which is created by Kenny J. Wang, and it shows the overall kitchenware store, right? And this overall packaging talks about the story of about the company which sells products. Primarily these are handcrafted by local artists, and because of that you can see the touch of the overall brand representation with a calligraphic way of writing the overall description of that particular brand. And interestingly, since these are handcrafted, the way depiction of calligraphic again becomes the part of a supportive or a complementary additions to that particular representation as a packaging design. And it features, so if you see in terms of color, the color has been continuously projected as a packaging element, as a tag, and even in the product, some of the gradients has a closer representation to this. And if you see, it feels very much uniform, and it speaks again the tone of that particular brand because of the organic handcrafted representation. Again, the overall packaging is again taught in that way. So this is a very interesting how this such kind of, even when you are designing any kind of packaging design, the idea of continuity can be prevail in different segment of your packaging, be it a logo, be it the description of the thing, be it how you are tagging the overall product, right, and how the overall packaging design has been done. Now we are coming to another example, and this is a very interesting logo. So if you see this logo, so this is the logo here, and this was done by, the illustrations are done by Alex Hugmark, and the overall brand is created by Bido. So you can see how the idea of continuity again is taking the role in terms of similarity. So because of the similarity of this stroke, the overall elements which are associated to this packaging are also being depicted, and with that the essence of continuity has been prevailed. So if you see here, right, the overall packaging, if you see the like apron which the chef is wearing, again the sense of this similar elements has been addressed. The logo has been repeated in different segments using different colors, and the style, if you see, it's a very interesting style which has been repeated in all of the representation. And this is how the essence of continuity can be addressed in different segments of the brand, and which has different functionality maybe, but because the way how the brand has been replicated in a continuous way, now it makes sense, and you have a better relationship with the rest of the collaterals which are associated to it. Yes, I think we have talked a lot about map, right, in the initial discussion. So this is where we again want to emphasize how the idea of continuity has been maintained here. Again, just to recall, this was done by Henry C. Beck, right, and this is the London Underground Metro map. And here you can see how the lines are designed in such a way that it gives a continuous a sense of continuity is being depicted as a design principles. Continuity in terms of shape, in terms of color, right, in terms of angular representation has been addressed. And because of this, the idea of legibility and comprehending the information becomes more easily accessible, right, and easily acceptable even to for the users. And people who are doing any kind of navigation work or any kind of map design, I would request or recommend you to address the idea of continuity as much as you can, address the idea of similarity, right, which we have talked about in the previous discussions, right, and the idea of again how the overall representation has a uniformity such that it's harmonious in nature. Make sure the representation when you are addressing it is less chaotic, and your design solutions should be comprehended in a very much approachable way such that people can connect what you are trying to address. So with this, we are in the end of this session where we have talked thoroughly about the Gestalt principles of continuity, right? And we'll briefly recap what we have learned through this overall segment. So primarily, we have understood that the Gestalt principles of continuity plays a crucial role in creating visually coherent and intuitive designs. So by guiding the viewer's eyes along with smooth, uninterrupted paths, designer can enhance engagement, convey a message effectively, and maintain a harmonious flow in their work, whether in art, branding, and user interface design. Leveraging continuity ensures that the visual experiences are both functional and aesthetically pleasing. And with those examples which we have encountered in this segment, I'm pretty sure you will have a better understanding in the upcoming sessions and how to perceive this Gestalt's principles, and how we as a designer take the benefit of such kind of perception and create our overall composition in such a way that it makes more it becomes more functional. So with this, thank you for your time, and I hope all of you have got some idea about continuity as Gestalt's principles and why it is important, and how we can use as a designer for better designs, right? And we will end this session here, and in the next session we will learn about proximity in Gestalt's principles. Thank you. Goodbye.